So this is our new format for right now for doing the spiritual gumbos. Did an update on my computer, and some of the old programs were rendered obsolete. So gonna have to download a little voice recorder thing. The one I thought was gonna work, not working, and I just don't want to download one just right this moment. So I'll just do this. Probably do this for the next week, just because I don't have any real inclination to do that. We left off with Abraham being his name changed and being told he needs to cut off the foreskin of his penis. While many people think that is an extreme measure, the scientific slash the scientific notion of it, but the health benefit of it cannot be disputed. It's indisputable. Um, Now, with this said, Abraham is 99 years old. He only has a son through his wife's handmaid, Agar. And what happens is that she's not just given to Abraham as like some concubine, she's given to him as a wife. So people should understand the gravity of that situation. And then with that said, Agar is an Egyptian. The Egyptian people come from the loins of Mizraim. So if she's a real Egyptian, she probably doesn't look very much different than them. Just depends on to what level and degree genetic variation has taken place throughout the land. Anyway, gene diversity. It ends, the chapter, or the part we left off, it was around verse 21 in chapter 17. And it was after the fact, it was after the fact that Abraham had already had Isaac, and he's now in a situation where Sarah has afflicted the young lady. The young lady's been visited by an angel, non-earthly entity, keeping in mind that this entire account was written down by a man named Moses. Okay, so the way that it was told to him was so that way he could understand. So the way that he's writing it and it was written was so that way when somebody else read it, that hopefully they could understand. Even though it's been translated and transliterated, that much must be understood. Saying that, we leave off, or we pick off where we left off exactly, and it's going to be verse 21. No, verse 20. And concerning Ishmael, behold, I have heard thee, and behold, I have blessed him, and will increase him and multiply him exceedingly. 12 nations shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee at this time in the next year. When he left off speaking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So listen, that's a precursor to what's about to take place. Now, the same angel, or the same representation of the Lord, what Abraham was considering God, which would have been levied to Moses in understanding. They would have given this to Moses. They would have told this to Moses, that when Abraham was alive, he believed this being, he believed me to be God. Right on. Right. Anyway, keep going. Verse 23. And Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all his homeborn servants, and all those bought with money, and every male of the men in the house of Abraham. And he circumcised their foreskins in the time of that day, according as God spoke to him. Now, stop right there again. If seeing somebody's nakedness is a sin, do you realize he's the one performing the circumcisions, right? It's believable he probably circumcised himself, as painful as that is. However, you do realize he's the one doing all the he's the one doing this medical procedure. So, unless you're saying that seeing someone's nakedness doesn't apply to circumcising them, I would have to say that seeing their nakedness is not an implication of you actually seeing somebody physically naked, but a sexual act. Going forward, we have to keep reiterating these little things as we go, so that way we don't forget them as we lead up to those moments. Verse 24. Let's go back into the middle of the verse. And he circumcised their foreskins in the time of that day, according as God spoke to him. 24. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And at the period of that day, Abraham was circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, both those born in the house and those bought with money of foreign nations. Stop right there. Man, this is so deep. This is the only way to explain circumcision in lands that you could pretty much say that the Hebrew presence was never there. Right on. I won't say Adamite presence was never there, but you could say that a Hebrew presence may have never been there, at least from the seed of Abraham. Unless you're considering children that he has later on. We're not talking about that right now. Anyway, point being this. Everybody was circumcised, right? Who knows how many people that was. But the most important part of this is that the Moabites and the Ammonites were not. Lot was not around for this, was he? Say that then. And keep it pushing. Verse 26. And at the period of that day, Abraham was circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, both those born in the house, and those bought with money of foreign nations. And God appeared to him by the oak of Mamre, as he sat by the door of his tent at noon. Verse 2, chapter 18. Now stop right there. Understand the oak is so big that he can put his tent under it, right on, and he's comfortable under the oak. That's how big this tree is. Okay? You're not going to get up under a regular oak tree and just do that. So I mean, like, you got to think about, okay, he's living in a tent, but he has servants and everything. Like, I mean, just please understand the gravity of the situation. However, he's the master, so if it rains, I need to be covered from the water. All kinds of stuff. There's shade, everything. All sorts of things that come into play in that thought. But I have to explain it all to you, because I know Preacher Feelgood won't just tell you the physical, humane things that take place. They have to take place. That's regular. He's in charge of everybody eating and living. They're going to naturally want him to be somewhere more comfortable, so that way he has time to think and posture himself the right way. We'll go back to verse 1. And God appeared to him by the oak of Mamre. Now understand, I'm going to contend for a long time, because that's not the Lord God. I'm going to contend that the character that they're calling God and Lord interchangeably, sometimes the same character, it seems as if, is actually the Messiah. And to them, a regular person, they were God. Because this is a physical being that's coming, showing up. And God appeared to him by the oak of Mamre as he sat by the door of his tent at noon. And he lifted up his eyes and beheld, and lo, 3 men stood before him. And having seen them, he ran to meet them from the door of his tent and did obeisance to the ground. And he said, Lord, it's a capital L, if indeed I have found grace in thy sight, pass not by thy servant. Now, the crucial part about this is how many men were there? 3 men stood before him. So the one that he's calling Lord must be the same individual that he's been seeing this entire time. Come on. Stick with me. Stay with me. All right? And he knows that he's not from earth. So this is why, so he appears to him, right? So this is why he says that God appeared to him. Right. Come on now, let's just break it down. And he said, Lord, if I have indeed found grace in thy sight, pass not by thy servant. Pretty much be like, don't blow me off. Let water now be brought, and let them wash your feet, and do ye refresh yourselves under the tree. And I will bring bread, and ye shall eat, and after this ye shall depart on your journey, on account which refreshment ye have turned aside to your servant. And he said, so do, as thou hast said. So, he, once again, this is code now, it's lowercase. But he is the Lord. He is the one that Abraham is considering God. Once again, I'm willing to put everything I got on that. Everything. Everything. The Most High God is not going to lie and say, oh, no man can see my face and yet live. And then people steadily be seeing his face. I need you to understand what's happening. The Most High God is not a lie. But the way that the white man has translated and transliterated the book, it's hard to distinguish the powers of the forces from one from another. And this is why you need to respect the Messiah, because he's that powerful, where in which, in reverence, they're calling him God. Do you understand that? If the Messiah is going to be the king, who is he to you? Likened to you, at least. Unto. Right. Keeping it pushing. And Abraham hasted to the tent to Sarah, and said to her, hasten, and knead 3 measures of fine flour, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the kin, and took a young calf, tender and good, and gave it to his servant. And he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he dressed, and he set them before them, and they did eat. And he stood by them under the tree. And he said to him, the angel, the Most High God's, right-hand man. And he said to him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he answered and said, behold, in the tent. And he said, this is the angel speaking to him, because the Messiah is an angel. He's the highest level angel. I'm pretty sure that they don't get any higher than him. He has to be the strongest. He's the ace boon of the Most High. So his function is way different. He's like the elite, most elite level of whatever you think of special forces is. He's the highest level of the elite level under whoever is in control and in charge. And bang, bang, verse 10. And he said, I will return and come to thee according to this period seasonably. And Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard at the door of the tent, and being behind him. And Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in days. And the custom of women ceased with Sarah, meaning the way that women feel about certain things and the ability to certain biological things that I'm not going to explain here right now. That would make it easier to rear a child. Verse 12, and Sarah laughed in herself, saying, the thing has not yet happened to me, even until now, and my Lord is old. Now this is everything that she said within herself. Think about that time when that guy had the palsy and all those little so-called wicked-ass priests were questioning the Messiah. Think about that, and then think about what just happened. Now think about that. And the Lord said to Abraham, not he, the Lord now. Deep, ain't it? Why is it that Sarah laughed in herself, saying, shall I indeed bear? Shall I then indeed bear? But I am grown old? Shall anything be impossible with the Lord? Right. Busted her head right there. Come on. At this time I will return to thee seasonably, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said to her, this is the Lord, yo. This is the one that Abraham's calling God. Nay, but thou didst laugh. Oh my goodness. Where else do we go with this before I end it all out? I'm going to stop. Spiritual Gumbo out.